Welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Namibia. Now, the Namibian Constitution recognizes how economic empowerment of women is not only a matter of rights and moral imperatives, but also a prerequisite to attaining sustainable development, impacting poverty eradication, inclusive growth, and shared prosperity. That is why the Oyayone Foundation is launching the first ever Namibia Status of Women report for the year 2023. Now, this report provides a comprehensive and impartial overview on national data, enabling the reader to analyze, emphasize, synthesize, and inform perspectives on wide-ranging gender development indicators. To give us more details on the report, we are joined by the founder and the executive director of the Oyayone Foundation, that is Daisry Obal. Ms. Obal, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Dapper. Thank you for having me.
Right. What inspired you to create the foundation, Oyayone Foundation, and also just to focus on issues related to the Namibian women's status? And also perhaps, what does Oyayone mean?
Dapper, I've been working in the Office of the President for the past 9 years with our third President, His Excellency Dr. Genkop, and I wholeheartedly believe in his vision for an inclusive, united and prosperous Namibian house. And at my intersection of public policy, economics, social policy, women, youth, I started to understand some of the limiting factors that are impeding our progress. And it's not enough to leave government to do the work of nation building alone. And I've answered the call. In 2022, I started this foundation. Oyayone means a net caster hunting for the others that are lost. And that is exactly what we aim to do. We want to not only work with women, but young single mothers who are in grassroots communities who are not only responsible for their own potentialities, but also they are rearing the next generation of children who in the next 10, 20 years are expected to become productive citizens of our country.
Amazing. Earlier on, I did mention that this will be the first ever launch of the Namibia Status of Women's Report, but this is for the year 2023. Can you just give us some insights into the key findings of the report?
Thank you. The report was actually launched on the 16th of November 2023 at the end of last year by the Deputy Minister for Gender, Poverty Eradication and Child Welfare. But the report is a first in that we do have data in the country, but it's not gender integrated reporting, where you have got a single source of information that can provide you a baseline overview of how far our country has come over the past 34 years in the development and empowerment of women. So at Oyayone, we endeavored to do just that, to consolidate all of that data and bring it in at a disaggregated level so that we can really interrogate economic inclusion and empowerment. How are we faring along women, education, health and social welfare, social issues like SGBV, political inclusion and empowerment. How has our country fared over the 34 years, but also contrasting to the region and the globe?
All right. What would you say are some of the key findings that concerned you the most from the report?
I think overall it's an optimistic report. I do think that ours is a good story to tell. I think ours is a story of steady progress that has been enabled by a lot of political will. But there have been some key insights. I think poignant to point out is that when you personify our country demographically, Namibia is predominantly by the median, taking the average age of the population. We are a 21-year-old black woman who resides in a rural area of this country. So that is important because we need to put a face to development, we need to put a face to poverty eradication, we need to put a face to unemployment. And some of the startling pointers are that a young woman in Namibia today is more economically excluded than her male counterpart. And also that demographic of 21, that is the HIV prevalence of rising incidence of HIV in the country.
All right. And how do you think the findings of this report can be used to drive positive change and also advocacy for women in Namibia?
The report is useful to everybody, lawmakers, policymakers, business leaders, civil society. Everyone has a role to play. I think there are some key recommendations that we have derived from our gap analysis that can speak to legal reform. It was interesting to note that women in the Zambezi area, Zambezi region of our country, are more likely to have asset ownership in the form of owning property and houses compared to women in other parts of the country, particularly women in the northern parts of the country, northeastern part of the country are less likely, the 4Os, are less likely to own property. This points to customary marriages. It also speaks to the land tenure system, where most women live in communal areas and are farming communally at subsistence level and are not able to leverage formal financing instruments in the mainstream economy.
All right. And what would you say are some of the challenges you experienced when compiling this whole report?
As indicated, there's a need for more disaggregated data in the country, where we really stratify data to gender. So within the financial sector, it was difficult to really get a gender perspective on gender responsive financing in terms of microfinancing or access to capital or access to ownership of land. How many women compared to men are able to access capital, and what is the value of the capital that women are accessing within the financial markets in contrast to their male counterparts? Also, the time that we did the report, the national census had not yet been commissioned. Okay. And according to the nearest data point, we were working with sometimes data sets as far back as 2013 or 2020. It was not always the most recent data that is available in the country. We're therefore looking forward to the publication of the 2024 census outcome, and we have intentions to update the report periodically to reflect the real impression. But in terms of where we are now, this report gives us the nearest data point of how far we've come as a country.
Yeah. And also perhaps when can we look forward to the next report, seeing that this is the 2023 one? When can we look forward to the 2024 one?
Certainly once the census is out, we will do an update on the data sets.
All right. Now, how can individuals, organizations, as well as the government contribute to improving the status and the rights of women in Namibia now based on the recommendations of the report that will be launched?
I think some of the things that we're realizing as we analyze the data is that there's a need for more gender-responsive financing. What we are picking up from the report is that the Namibian woman is socio-politically liberated. We've done very well politically in terms of gender representation in parliament, gender representation in cabinet. We're now at 41% female ministers. The pipeline, the succession, out of 20 deputy ministers, we have 16 who are women, which is an 80% representation of women. So our political progress and empowerment has perhaps overtaken our economic inclusion and empowerment. The facts and the data confirm that a woman is more economically excluded than her male counterpart. The gender pay gap in the country is at 20%. The ability of women to access capital and financing instruments on the market is less compared to her male counterpart. And these are the challenges that are impeding the progress and the ability of women to maximize their potential and to also invest in the next generation that they are rearing. We also have a very high prevalence of single-headed households where we have a single income stream of a female-headed home, and these are the real burdens that Namibian women have to carry every single day. And someone has said that no society can flourish when you leave half of your population's contributions behind.
Yeah. Will we perhaps see any initiatives where the Oyayone Foundation will be going out there and perhaps just explaining the report to the Namibian women just to understand it further?
The report is important from a research point of view. We wanted to take an evidence-based approach to our programmatic interventions. We're not only a research organization, we are programmatic. We are working with communities on economic, health, and education capacity building programs. However, we recognize that before we go into communities, we needed to understand the realities on the ground so as to inform the type of programming that we undertake. So we are reaching out. We're currently operating in 4 regions where we are working with the women and providing some capacity building so that they can earn livelihoods and take care of themselves and their children.
All right. Perhaps your final remarks before we let you go this morning?
Only to wish the nation an Well, International Women's Day was on Friday, but
Yeah.
this is Women's Month. And I think every leader in policy, in lawmaking, in business, in civil society, we need to take a gender perspective on how we can truly take the women along.
All right. Ms. Obal, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we wish you all the best. And hopefully we get to see the 2024 report soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Daisry Obal, who is the founder and executive director of the Oyayone Foundation, speaking to us this morning, talking to us about the first ever Namibia status of the Women's Report 2023. Don't go anywhere. Good Morning Namibia continues after this.